and I've lived in Eastbourne now for, can I say it? I should be 89 next week. and and I've lived here all my life. I've never lived anywhere else, and I've lived in this one house 70 odd years, so that's how I can introduce myself. My earliest memory was going to school. Uh, by the time we started school at the age of 4, and we'd moved then from Churchdale Road, or Corporation Road, into Willoughby Crescent. So I lived in Willoughby Crescent right opposite here, and went to school at St Andrews, which is just across the road. And I was at school there from 4 until I was 11 years old. That was an infant and junior school combined together, as it is now really, but it's called a primary school at the moment, I think they call them now, but that's what it was known as. St Andrews Infants and Junior School. I can remember going to school there, yeah, from the age of 4. I can remember practically my mum walking me across this playing field, because I mean it was a playing field with an iron fence all the way round it, and just a gateways, and there was no traffic like there is today, and you could walk across this field and across the main road opposite there with a few horse and carts and a few old motor cars, but I can remember taking me to school and at 4 and taking me into the infants part of the school, and that was headmistress, her name was Miss Gibbons. I can remember it as plain as it was yesterday, and I can remember taking Miss Gibbons, get hold of my hand and taking me in school, and taking me into the class where I was going to be, 4 years old. I can remember that very, very plainly. Let's say, and then your mum used to come and get you like at 12 o'clock, bring you home. At 2 o'clock, used to take you back again. So it was always close handy to the school. And in fact, my 2 children went to school there, followed me on after all those years. The terrific bombing we took during the war. I mean, by that time now, I'd been through senior school, and I was at Cavendish School, and I left school just before the war started, and in 1939, and I went to work on the building industry. And then when Eastbourne started to get bombed, and all the young men had gone. They was all in the army, and it was just left elderly men and youngsters like myself at 14 years old, because we left school at 14 then, and went straight to work. When the bombing started, and the old people on the building was grouped into flying squads, as you might call them, wherever they dropped bombs. We used to move in and repair houses, put glass in and tiles on the roof, and made them habitable again for people to live in. Of course, the population had decreased because of the evacuation. I mean, all the school children was evacuated. In fact, I was evacuated, but I only stayed away a few weeks and came back. But my family evacuated to Gloucestershire. There was it's often seen on the television, the people getting in the trains and all the kids going off, but I went and with my family, but we came back again, and I came back to Willoughby Crescent, and I stayed there until we got bombed out in Willoughby Crescent. But that was in 1942, I think it would be. Yeah, that would have been about 1942. We got bombed out there, and the house never got hit, but we was right close to where the bombs fell, and the house was badly damaged. We were moved out, and we went up to Channelview Road. We were only there a fortnight. We got bombed out again, and the council gave my mother this house, and this is where I still am. This is how I came to get to Southbourne Road, is through the bombing in Eastbourne. And then the bombing increased. We used to get regular. In fact, it was called the most bombed town on the south coast. And there's a book being written by, he was a friend of mine at the time because we were both in the Home Guards together. And he wrote a book. Over there it is, somewhere, you can look at it. He wrote a book about all the bombings, and it's pictured. There's a complete set of pictures of all the happenings of the bombing in Eastbourne. And as I say, I was amongst that era until I was, well, when we were 16, I had a mate called Tom Elliott. He's dead now, but he was one of my best mates I ever had. And we went to school together in Willoughby Crescent. And when during the war, you had to be doing something to help the war along. So you was either seconded into the fire brigade as a runner, that's the auxiliary AFS it was called then, or you had to do fire watching where you had to stay at the place where you were employed overnight, watching for incendiary bombs and dealing with them, or you had to join the Home Guard. We both put our ages up and we went off to the Ordnance Yard. You know the Ordnance Yard just up there in Seaside. We went up there and told them we were 17, and we now became members of the Home Guards, and we used to have some. It wasn't nothing like the Home Guard that you see Dad's Army. Some of it was like it, but we used to do patrols along the seafront, which was all heavily barbed wired off on the actual seafront side, and one of the funniest memories I've always, and Tom and I always used to go out on patrol together because we were mates, and we used to have a house which I suppose the Home Guard took over in, I think it was number 9 or number 7 Devonshire Place. But there was, as I say, there was a moratorium on the town and all the houses were taken over by the council. But that was their headquarters. And we used to go out on a 2-hour patrol. So you went home from work and then you put your Home Guard uniform on and your rifle and bayonet, and off we went and up to there. I think it was once a week we used to have to do this. Because there was various companies of Home Guards around Eastbourne, and I was in C Company, which was at the Ordnance Yard. And then we used to go up to Devonshire Place, as I say, from there. And we used to patrol the seafront because the seafront was an out-of-bounds area. There was only people that had business to, like all the hotels was now taken over, mainly all of them, were taken over by the military. When I say military, I mean Air Force, and there's Navy presence here. They had a big place at Eastbourne College. And they were the only people that would be allowed. You know, there was no civilians was allowed on there to make it. Anyway, we used to have to go and walk up and down the seafront. We used to patrol from Devonshire Place, and we go up and walk up to St B's School with a rifle and a bayonet, 17 years old. And 10 rounds of ammunition we had. We had 5 in the magazine in the rifle and 5 in the. And I can remember me and Tom laughing because we both used to smoke, and we used to hide in the bushes up opposite the Grand Hotel their way and light up cigarettes and smoke. And I remember one of us saying to each other, I wonder what we'd do if we saw any Germans coming up the beach. we got no means of no means of communication with headquarters. There was no radios. We just look for look for any Germans trying to land on the thing. I said, well, what would we do? I said, if it's just fire on them, I said, they'd only shoot us. I don't know who was saying this, but either one of us was in our conversations and laughing and smoking when we shouldn't be. And, but we never come to any conclusion. I think we said we'd just lay there until the Germans went away again and we'd come back to headquarters. But we used to patrol, as I say, we used to patrol that, and we used to do our 2 hours on, and we used to go down and get our heads down, and at 6 o'clock in the morning we used to come home and then change and go back to work. So we've been up all night and have to go back working on the building in the daytime. But then directly I was 18, I registered everybody. It came in the newspaper. Your initials, like my name being Piper, P, all young men with the initial of P must register for military service at certain days. And they had a place up in Pashley Road. That was the, because all the middle of the town had been bombed a bit, and I suppose it was safer up there for them. I remember going on my bike and riding all the way up to Pashley Road and signing the book, and they give you a little card to say that you'd registered. And then from there on, then you waited until you got a call to go to Brighton, I think. Yeah, I went to Brighton. I went to Brighton for a medical. And you was asked what unit you wanted to go in. I passed A1. And you asked what unit, and I wanted to go in the Royal Marines, but I didn't get in the Royal Marines. I got in the Army. And eventually you were called up from the Army. Immediately you were 18. That was the January 1944. I was 18. I was 18 in 1943. But directly a few weeks after the medical, I was called up, and I was called up, as I say, you got a little buff envelope come through the door saying you will report for military service and a railway warrant and what times you should get on the train and go home. And I got on the train and went. From this house, actually, I went. I was living in this house, so I went there, and I went to Canterbury, and I'd done 6 weeks primary training there, learning to be a soldier. And then I was. They asked you if you want to be what unit you want to be, and with both my brothers, I had 2 brothers, both in the Royal Artillery. And I asked to go in the Royal Artillery. So I got posted then up to Yorkshire. It was a massive camp, and they took all units, and one of them, of course, there was the artillery. And I'd done a 16 weeks, I think it was, 14 weeks gunnery course, and I came out as a trained gunner in May 1944, just before D-Day, and that was still a training unit. I wasn't in a regiment at the time. I was in the Regiment of Artillery, Royal Regiment of Artillery, but I trained on what is called a self-propelled gun. It was a 25-pounder mounted on a tank chassis, armoured division, and from there, I went down to. When I say I mean I'm talking about a group of us who've done the training, and we all was embarked down to Aldershot. We was there in little camp for a little while, and we went down to what I know now is the New Forest. And we was under canvas in the New Forest. And D-Day had started, by the way. It had started when I was in North Wales on the last day of their artillery. Yes, I was in North Wales, and that's when we come down to Aldershot. There we went into this big camp. It was all in wire, and I can always remember about this camp because it had notices hanging on the wire all the way round. Civilians must not speak to troops. Troops on one side, and troops must not speak to the civilians. So it was a camp before we went to France. But I never went on D-Day because I was a reservist, as you might say. But eventually I went over in July into France, and I went a little while afterwards. I was posted to I was very proud of that few moments there. I was posted to one of the best known units in the British Army at the time, and that was the 7th Armoured Division, the Desert Rats. And I had the badge, although I was never in the desert with them, mind you, but I was in the Royal Horse Artillery, and I was in that for a few months, and went right through up into Holland, and we got back to near enough to Germany, and saw quite a bit of action in the time. But never got hurt. Never got some close ones, but never got hurt. And after that, I got posted. So one day I was quite busy away doing my jobs amongst, as a gunner, and I got called to the battery office, and I was told I was going to be sent back to England to form. I'd had combat experience, and I was getting forming more groups up for the war was nearly into Germany, and it was as good as over. Not as good as over, but it was, they thought it was and didn't need me anymore. And I came back to England, and then I went a few weeks afterwards. I was posted out to India. I went to India because we were going to form units there to re-invade Singapore. That was what we knew, but it never came because they dropped the atom bomb, and that was the end of my little story. But I stayed in India for a year and a few months it was, and then until my demob number come up, and I came home and I'm back to Eastbourne again. And then I went back onto the main bridges where I worked, and carried on living I got married and things like that. So, see, when we was in the Home Guard, there was two groups of youngsters like myself. I was then, and there was older men that was in the last war, in the 1418 war. There was just certain lots of them, and it was quite funny, really. I mean, we had old rubbishy old stuff to begin with, but as the time went on, I mean, I'd done it in the Home Guard for what? Because I was 16 and a half, I think, when I put my age up to 17. And it was a mixture, we used to do weekends with the Canadians, lots of Canadian soldiers in Eastbourne during the war. Especially out at Ratton area, or in the field, on the hills there was little copses, and we used to go up there doing training on Saturday mornings and Sundays. We used to have to do, you were compelled to do so many hours a week training. So I mean, we whether we'd have been a fighting force to be fulfilled, I don't know. I can only talk about the little bit between that we used to do parades, and we used to do marching, and we were proper soldiers, really, I suppose. But it was called the LDV first, the Local Defence Volunteers. Then they put it up to after they put it up to Home Guard. We had a blazing on their arm. Proper soldiers. I don't think I've got any photographs of myself. I don't think I really have. Going back to this home guard business, we trained exactly as when we had regular soldiers, regular trainers, people come there, but mainly like the sergeants and the sergeant majors and was all 14, 18 year, the 14, 18 year men. They was in charge, like you had your, exactly the same as the army, but the discipline it was the same. I mean, apparently you could still be court-martialed because you were under military law. You sign the paper to say you defend the country. 5 rounds of ammunition. And yeah, we used to go down the range, where it's a harbour is there now, but there was a firing range down there. Always when I was a kid it was there. And we used to do proper target practice, firing, and used to do bayonet fighting. Bayonet had a scabbard on, you'd put your bayonet on in your rifle, and then there would be an instructor in front of you, and he had a pole with a great lump of rag like a boxing glove on the end, and he would point at you, and you had to parry him, and when you actually first of all you had to charge with the bayonet, so they had these sacks of straw hanging up on a gallows kind of business, and you used to have to run and scream your head off, with a rifle and bayonet up here and stab at these things. And the question was always asked, if you couldn't get the bayonet out, how are you going to get the bayonet out? And then you used to have to say, well, your gun is loaded, and you blow it out, you pull the trigger, and the recoil would take the gun out. So, yeah, it was. And then we used to say, well, this chap was in front of you, this instructor, and he would keep poking at you, and you'd parry him off all the time. But if you missed, for some poor devils, they got hit straight between the eyes with them, and the next morning you could see them with 2 big black eyes. And it was the same as when I was in the army. When we done bayonet fighting in the army, we done exactly the same, and because there wasn't all this modern stuff like there is today. We just had old Canadian Ross rifles in the Home Guard. And then, because prior to me joining the Home Guard, it was pitchforks and shotguns, what they could get until they started to. But when I did leave the Home Guard, they were well equipped, with all the infantry, like modern rifles and bayonets, and they was always well equipped with them. And yeah, it was quite a bit of fun. We used to get paid for it. You get £3 bob a parade every time you went on parade and done the training. You got or done a night duty. You got 3 shillings for it in those days. 15 pence. That's today. Our house around Willoughby Crescent was badly bombed. It wasn't a direct hit, but it was 4 houses away. Where the bomb actually dropped, and in between the back of Corporation Road and Willoughby Crescent, and we had bombs took houses away. Just in Willoughby Crescent there was about 5 people killed just along there. The Ripley family, they was nearly all wiped out, and then my own sister's house at number 2. This is 267, only 5 or 6, several houses. You'll see them as you go by. You'll see some newish type houses. That lot was blown to bits during the war, and there's pictures of it in there. And that's where my mum got buried. She went up to get my sister's boy was playing in the road, and she went up to get him when do you know about local warnings we used to get? When these fighter bombers came in, they came across a channel very low, so as to be underneath the radar screen. And then when they got to Berlin Gap, they swooped through up Berlin Gap, over the downs and come out line abreast over this town. So there was always, say, 3 or 4 or 5, you know, sometimes more, I think, line abreast. And there'd be 8 machine guns on each plane and cannon guns and all that bombs. And they used to actually spray the town with small arms fire, and they dropped their bombs and they were gone, and the raid would be over in a matter of a few minutes. But you know, it was terrifying what happened. And if you look at this house, and you'll see holes in the wall, and some of them are bullet holes from where this house got hit, because we had an Anderson shelter in that room there. You know, that was a table with a metal top and metal legs and wire cages around it, and we all dived in there. We dived in there if I was ever indoors when it had happened. No, I mean, for terrifying. I mean, some of the places that got hit when Marks and Spencer's got hit that day. I was working on the seafront then in by the Queen's Hotel when this plane, and actually the pier was cut in half. They took a section of the pier, they took that out, and there was 2 or 3 Bofor light anti-aircraft guns on there. And all of a sudden they were popping. We was repairing these hills in Queen's Gardens, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 and this German bomber came out of the clouds, so low. He was ever so low over here, and he dropped a chain of bombs. People say they were chained together so that when they fell out, they all. But whether that was right or wrong, I don't know. But it hit Marks and Spencer's, and there was quite a lot of casualties. And that wasn't, you know, it was about this time of the year, just coming up to Christmas, when that happened. And I can remember that. I'm not going to say I saw the bombs come out, but I did see the plane come over, and it was a hell of a bang. And then I say the rescue squads used to go in, the air raid wardens and that, and all the fire brigades. Everybody was, you know, it was all. They soon went there. There was quite a few people killed and hurt there. I remember them as always being, you know, really wonderful gardens, you know, the way they looked after. But during the war, they was all dug over, no flowers in them, but they were planted with onions, and part of the Dig for Victory campaign. It was really like all. I think a bit of Old Town came into it as well. So in the old recreation ground up there, I think that was turfed. Gildridge Park area, that was cornfields. You know, they took all the small areas, and brought them into food production. Yeah, it was because I can remember it because when we used to go to the dances at the Winter Garden, and when we came home from there, you'd come down the seafront, and we used to nip over and nick a couple of onions and eat them on the way home. Yeah, it was all big old onions they had there, and it wasn't till after the war till they started to put them back into what they were there meant to be. Was the Dig for Victory campaign kind of business. You know, that was the seafront. I mean, and the remainder of it, I mean, was all taken over by the military. The Central Library was always known as then, and because there was, you know, there was a couple of odd ones dotted around the town, smaller ones, but the Central Library was also a school. It was a technical college, which I was at for a few years. You know, when I towards the end of my name, and mainly it was the part that I was at was metalwork and woodwork classes. that's where you went to learn, you know, to use your hands and tools. But it was always a school underneath. The old fire station was next door to it, and the central library was there, and we used to go in the side entrance and down the side entrance for to get into these metalwork classes, and you know, where we were being taught how to manipulate metals and woodwork. But do you want to hear a funny bit now? Because something's just come back to me. So I got the cane there. There was a water, there was a passageway down, and there was a water trough down the bottom with a chute in it, a wooden chute. And where we used to try and slide, and there was always water in it. So you had to slide, if you wanted to, you had to slide down this chute and then jump the last bit without going in the tub. And about 6 of us got caught doing that, and we got marched in. And I think his name was Adams. I think his name was the headmaster. Yeah, it was Mr. Adams. And hold her hand out, boy, and whack 6 times, 3 times on each hand. That's for jump used in that thing. That was something I remember about you. But yeah, I remember the library because we used to use it quite a lot, didn't we, in those days? But I think it got hit at the same time as what the fire station got hit. And you'll see it in that book there. There was casualties there. You know, a fireman got killed there. I can't remember dates. I can't remember when it got hit, not unless I've looked at that book. But I know I was in Eastbourne. I know that I was in Eastbourne from all the hit and run raids nearly till I went in the army, because when I went in the army, I was in the army. But the flying bomb was coming over then, and the fighter, you know, bombers, they weren't so, and I think 1 or 2 these flying bombs did drop in Eastbourne, but I wasn't here to be sure. But yeah, that's what I can remember about the library. I remember, you know, we used to use it as kids to get books, and but it got bombed. No, I can't remember what year it got bombed, but I know the fire station, and then there was a little V for Victory cafe put there where you could go in and get food that wasn't on the ration. You know, you could go in and get a cup of tea. Well, everything was on the ration, but you could go in there and get a cup of tea and a bacon sandwich or something like that. Yeah, well, because there wasn't no television, was there? I mean, it was all live shows, and mainly it was all has-been stars, you know, but it was quite good. I remember going on there on the stage when in 1938, it was around that area, I was in the Sea Cadets. You know, there was a local Sea Cadets opened up, and I remember going up there doing a display, and we had to march on the stage, and the Union Jacks was up, and God Save the King, and all kind of business. It was a propaganda. It was a propaganda thing we were doing on the stage for the people to cheer our brave soldiers and that on, you know. I can remember that now you mention it for time. But yeah, I went there, up in the gods, 6pence, right up the top, looking down on the stage. Birdseye came here, didn't they? And they in fact, my wife worked there, and I remember her coming home from school. I remember coming in from work, and my two daughters were going to school over here. My wife used to take them over, like, and she said, yeah, she said, I've been offered a job in the evenings. So I said, whatever for? So she said, well, she said it would help out because money wasn't good. I mean, we were living, close to it. Not, we weren't living on the red line. Never, I don't think that. I mean, I had a wage. I mean, I never had a day's unemployment in my life. But she said, well, when we were on holidays, you know, to get the girls something, and she said, "Do you mind if I go down and you could look after the girls, like, you know?" And I said no. But of course, it got a regular thing there. They came round and put notices in the doors about recruitment staff, and she went down there and worked on the line until she died. Right, well, she was not while she was working there, but she came home from work and died. And it's it was a big thing, wasn't it? I mean, I knew lots of people. Whoever, when the building went slack, they all went down the Bird's Eye to work. You know, you get a job down the Bird's Eye, doing something or other. But that's just, I did, when I worked on Llewellyn's, I did, when they built another bit on it, where they were mass producing Swiss rolls. And I had some chaps working there. When I say I was a supervisor, see, and I used to go have jobs allotted to me to look after, and one of them was the Bird's Eye. And I used to stand there, and I used to have to put a white hat on and a coat, and I used to watch these blokes, and I think, well, how the earth did work here? I mean, all they done was, as these Swiss, what were they called? Arctic rolls. Well, as these Arctic rolls come down on the conveyor belt, if they weren't exactly in the right position, they wouldn't wrap properly when they got the other end. So they used to have to stand there all the time, straightening these things up. And I used to say to, how the hell do you work? You stand there all day doing that. I used to get pushed around for even for half an hour to blow your brain, wouldn't it? On a Saturday night, because you got extra hours drinking time on the pier. I can remember it. I can remember the pier catching fire before this one, and there was a fire on there, but I can't remember the exact date because when I worked for Bainbridge, we used to do all the decorating and work in the Burlington Hotel, and it caught fire then because while we was in there, we was watching it from the you know, a real bird's eye view of it, watching it. But some years ago that caught fire, and I can't think what part of it was now. But that caught fire then. But I can remember this one. I was just sat here, watched the smoke billowing up, and I thought, well, that's a tidy old fire, because I was looking straight out, somewhere up there, and then all this black smoke, and I thought, what a hell of a fire. And then Leslie rang me, and she works in St Mary's House, you know, social services office. And she rang me, and she said, Dad, she said, the pier's on fire. She said, it's a terrific fire on there. Oh, I said, that's where all that smoke is, you know, that's as much as I really know about it. And we have a joke about it now, about it's you know, the local paper, they're really going to now they put in they're reporting it. It's yeah, I used to have, you know, I used to fish off the pier when I was before I had the boat. I used to do a bit of fishing, but never to catch much off there. Wasn't very productive. Walk on there, we used to charge, you see, in those days for going on the pier. It wasn't free. It was either you had to pay to go on there and play on the machines. And what I'm going to say is, but I can remember that when I was on Bainbridges and worked, I mean, especially painters and that, I never got stood off. I was one of the fortunate ones that had a job all my life. But I can remember going up there with a mate of mine because they was looking for painters and the money was extraordinarily good. And I'm sure, you know, opposite the Beachhead Hotel there's a big mound, isn't there? And I'm sure underneath that mound all offices and that. That was being built. I can remember that, but I can't never find anything out about it. But me and John Guy rode our bikes up there uh, to get a job to earn this fabulous money that was supposed to be going about up there. And we went down underneath there, and it was a place for the observer corps when the Cold War, around the Cold War, when we was in conflict with Russia over the big. But I've never found out, and I often go up there with Leslie and my grandson, and we have a wander around up there. Opposite Beachhead Hotel, there's a big mound, isn't there? I'm sure that underneath there is where we went, but I've never. But I know I went to this place and we went underground. There was people called the Observer Corps, and they would have took it over. And there had been an early warning area, as they call it now. Yeah, I can remember that, but there's no way in and no way out. I have been told that's where the police horses used to be, and there was one entrance where you could drive a small truck in there or something like that. Beachhead, I mean, it's just notoriously famous for people that don't want to live anymore, and it jumping over the top. I used to go up there winkling, go down to Burling Gap, ride a bike. We used to ride our bikes up there. So you used to go down to Burling Gap to get winkles and prawns and stuff, done all that. I can remember as a boy, in 1930 something that bandstand was built, wasn't it? So I'd have been about 12, 13. And there was a little old bandstand there called the Bird Cage or something, a little old iron one. We used to project onto the beach like that, but not far from there. I watched that being built, and over the years I've been, to go out and listen to the bands because I like the old military music and that. The lifeboat, yeah, I've always been interested in the lifeboat, and because I like the sea, and I mean I had my own boat over there, and I was always interested. I know some of the lifeboat men, not over the last few years I don't know them, but in my era, and I remember that when we were boys, when the rockets used to go off, it's really them rockets used to go off. We was on our bikes and over there, and we used to help to push because the lifeboat never had that big slider. It had trows. We used to have to slide them down the beach and shove them under the boat so that it didn't hurt the bottom of the beach. And we used to help. And then when it come back, if we were there when it come back in, we would help recover it. And I always thought we was doing a good job. Like the lifeboat, I can always remember. I can remember the Barnhill. Well, the Barnhill was a ship, a passenger cargo ship, and it's in that book. It'll be in there. And in 1940s, it was rounding Beachhead about 2 o'clock in the morning, and a German bomber got it, and it got direct hits on it, and the lifeboat was out there, in a flash kind of business, rescuing people. But the lifeboat, the Barnhill, eventually, it drifted down, burning like hell. It drifted down and it ended up just outside where the Sovereign Harbour is now, and there are parts of it still there. There's boilers that are still there apparently. They never bothered to take them out, but it lay there until it broke. It broke in half, and all the cargo all spilled out. It was freezing cold. We used to wade in there and kick about with their feet and find tins of stuff. You never knew what it was because the labels had washed off. So, but if you found a lot together, you could grab them because you know they'd always be the same thing, like baked beans or tins of soup, that was a good do with the lifeboat. But the people of Eastbourne were accused by Lord Haw. He was the German propaganda man that used to come on the radio. And the people of England are starving because they're scavenging off a boat that the gallant German Air Force has bombed a couple of weeks before. And it laid there until such times as they had to break it up and take it away. I think that is a great improvement, and I think the Sovereign Harbour is as well. I mean, that holds great interest for me because that was never there. And I suppose, I mean, I don't want to get political, but I think it would have been there years ago if it wasn't for politics. It was only the Labour people saying, no, we don't want that down there, and wouldn't give them permission to open the coastline up. But soon as the Tory party got in, they got permission, and away it went. But I used to go down there quite a lot with my camera, photographing the procedures watching the harbour being built. I mean, it was very interesting, and watching them put that new pipeline out, you know, that was interesting to me. You know, unfortunately, they all got, a lot of the posts for Zayda got destroyed, but can't help that, it's gone by now. At the bottom of Northbourne, no, further down, where the Bird's Eye Roundabout, I still call it the Bird's Eye Roundabout, where the Bird's Eye Roundabout was, there was a railway line. It used to come right around the back of these houses. It used to start at the station, goods, only goods, it wasn't a passenger line, and it used to it used to deliver all the coal over to the gasworks, and then it would go on with the empty trucks, and it would cross the main road there, where the Bird's Eye Roundabout is. There was a level crossing there, where the old gatekeeper used to go and open the train, let the train go across in the middle of the day but of course you never had the traffic there. And that went right out across the Crumbles, and picked up loads of stones. You know, they used to call these, they were blue stones, they were official boulders. Used to use them for making perfume, powders and scrunch. And I remember that was there was Caffin's, the big motor repair place. It was one of the biggest in the town. You know, that was right on that roundabout. That was during the war. There was I think they were Canadian soldiers. They was up top on the flat roof with the Bren guns when these German fighter bombers come over. And the story is, and I think it's true, that one of these Canadians went out, picked up a Bren gun, and that was a light machine gun, you know, and just aimed it at the plane and fired at him and brought the bloody thing down. And it crashed in the drove, right opposite where the Bird's Eye ground was. It went right down in the mud then. It was a long time before they got the pilot out, years he was still in there. And there was Caffins there, and that all got pulled down for you know, to make all the betterments, all the shops and that there now. But yeah, that's a big improvement around there. But the railway track used to go across to this firing range I spoke about later on, earlier on rather. But that was, yeah, that was there. But when I was at school, because I used to go to school with some of the children from there. And when the Eastbourne really ended at St Anthony's Avenue, the Langley, what we call the Langley roundabout, the first roundabout. But that, if you look there, they're all, you know, pre-war houses. And then you start getting the new ones. That was on the left-hand side there was Austin's farm, and the other side of the road was Aylesbury Dairy, where nothing to do with Mary. But Aylesbury Dairy, that was the other side of and that's where Eastbourne finished. But the rest of it now, like the harbour and the shopping centre, and that's all grown to the benefit of Eastbourne, I would certainly say. Meads End, well, wasn't allowed up there, were you? You had to be off the seafront if you was a tradesman. You wasn't allowed to come down the seafront until after 10 o'clock, I think it was. There were no tradespeople allowed on there, no buses on the seafront when I was a kid. And you had to put your best suit on to go out there on a Sunday morning. Yeah, it was quite... But all that's gone now, and we're equal people now. But Meads, I think they used to call it Turkey Land because they said gobble, 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 you know, what, rather. It was Turkey Land. No, but building-wise, I mean, all around it's been buildings. I mean, you know, like that archery up there, that pub that stood there for all those years, and about 3 years ago they knocked it all down and another big block of flats there now. No, I think it's overpopulated now, Eastbourne. You know, I think it's just over the back here. Allotments, for years it's been allotments, and suddenly they've sold it off, and there's 3 houses private in there. That road must be one of the busiest roads in Eastbourne, because there's the factories, you know, the estates down there, there's roads, big heavy lorries go down there. It's quite big. Now, I think Eastbourne has prospered, but because all it was one time, you was either employed by the hotels or on the building or in the shops. Nowadays it's all individual tradesmen riding around in their vans, isn't it? Before it was several big building firms, and, but they've all gone. All the big building firms, it's all now. We used to call them one-man bands, like that. They're all skilled tradesmen, and they just amalgamate together when they do a big job, I should imagine. But no, it has altered that way. But any other way, no. I mean, we're not them shops over there, for instance. That they call that the high pavement, because it is a high pavement, and they call it. But look at it now. It's all one part of it is. All belongs to the washing machines and gas stoves and, you know, the
DB domestics.
Yeah, fridge users. And the other bit is higher, we're all building higher, you know. And the little shop that's just opened up there now is a agency for somewhere, a recruitment centre. So there's not, you know, like before you only had to walk over to the baker's, the butcher's, get your hair cut over there. And that is all, you know, there's all finished, that one. What I did forgot to mention is my little dog, Bob, the picture you got there, Bob. Now, he was my mum's dog, really, and after my mum died, we inherited him. And I had 2 girls, they were both attending St Andrew's School at the time. And one day, he followed them everywhere, but we had to keep him in. But this day he got ill, and he went over to St Andrew's School, and he walked in the school and found one of them. I forget which one it was it Chris or Leslie? But he went in, and when the teacher tried to get him out, he just sat there and growled. He sat down by one of the daughters and wouldn't come out of the school. He just sat there, and nobody could get near her. So they had to, what they'd done, they had to send a message over from my wife to go over there and get the doctor so they could carry on teaching. Yeah, he was a lovely little fellow, he was. But there you are, time's gone. And that's about that, I'm afraid.